Who's going to win? Don't know.
Kenzie wins.
Way to enter or to leave Macquarie Harbour is through Hell's Gates. The gap between Entrance Island on the right of us and the headland on the left, this is Hell's Gates. It's 70 metres across, water depth about 20 metres at this point. Hell's Gates was actually given its name by the convicts who were sent to Sarah. Gates. You'll see there's a little bit of tidal flow here today. The tide normally runs about 2 knots on the flood and about 3 knots on the ebb. However, in extreme conditions, if you have the rivers that flow into the harbour flooding, the tide can run out through the gap here at around 10 knots, 8.5 kilometres an hour. Rise and fall of the tide on the coast is around 1 metre. There is no set tidal pattern in the harbour itself. You'll see the fish actually jumping inside the pen as they start to chase the feed in a moment. All in the water there. Old seal right next to the pen there, he'll be looking for his breakfast. Company. They are Ingrid and Colin. So go along and have a listen to what they have to say. They'll be taking us for a little bit of a tour and telling us a little of Sarah Island's history.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Ingrid. I'm your guide today. Welcome to Sarah Island, which was mainly called Settlement Island or Headquarters Island back in the convict days. It was established in 1822 as a banishment settlement for re-offending convicts, and this means convicts had already been transported and done something else wrong. So they were banished, sent here for hard labour and even harsher punishments. The convicts called it hell on earth with good reason. By reputation, it was the worst, the most brutal convict settlement in the British Empire, predating Port Arthur and running for 12 years. And when we stick with those themes of general nastiness, bloodiness and brutality, we'll be presented with 7 puzzles as we make our way around the island. And we've just walked through the first one, the shipyards. Sarah Island was never intended for shipbuilding. It was established as a slave labour camp to use the convicts to harvest that valuable timber, hewn pine, that was growing in abundance up the Gordon River. But they hadn't factored in the wild weather, the wild seas. The timber started to stockpile on the island, and that's when they started building ships here. Our first puzzle, they built excellent ships and boats here, and how do you do that with a slave labour workforce? Well, it was all about hard labour. First thing they did when they got here, in hindsight not so smart, they cleared the whole island of vegetation. Then the roaring 40s winds came in, they were in trouble. So they built a series of windbreak fences running the length of the island, made from hewn pine in places over 12 metres high. Wow. Now, hard labour, you're standing on it. I've welcomed you to the island, I've told you a little lie. You're not on the original island yet. The edge of the original island is this little cliff behind me. See there with that great big tree fern and that large blackwood tree? This whole section of island going back to our jetty is convict-built, reclaimed land. Because you can imagine being so far away from public scrutiny, a little bit of power in the wrong hands and all manner of atrocities could and did happen on this island. 1,200 convicts passed through here during the 12-year settlement period. Average population at any given time was around 500. 300 or so convicts, then a big chunk of military, administration, a few civilian support personnel, and some of the military and admin had their families here, women and children. One muster recorded 27 children growing up on the island around all of this. Can't imagine it, but they were here. The island's 12.5 acres in size, and it had 27 buildings on it. And this is all natural revegetation. We're in the World Heritage Area, but there's no hewn pine on the island. Don't panic. You'll be experts in all things hewn pine by the end of the day. That's a promise.
Can you find it? She dropped the phone down. Oh. No, it's not the blue bit. No, that's not ours. I don't know what the blue bit is. Can you reach it, Ken? Yeah. You know everybody's watching you now, don't you? What's the blue thing that's down there, sweetie? Does that need to come up? Yep, pen, you can bring it up. So it happens when you drop a phone over the side.
Surgeon was to supervise the lashing to make sure you didn't die during it. That's comforting, isn't it? So if you've been issued 50 lashes and you're nearly dead at number 30, the surgeon would order a halt, you'd be taken down off the triangle and allowed to heal. And as soon as you were well enough, you were strung up again to get the 20 you missed out on first time around. There was no escaping the Macquarie cat. In our third cottage, we have our military officer, Major Champ. And Major Champ was forced to leave the island in disgrace for too obviously trading contraband with the convicts. No, it didn't do his career any harm at all. Probably good training for him in profiteering, power, corruption. 20 years later, he's Tasmania's first premier. In our last cottage, Reverend Schofield and his wife, Martha, Wesleyan Methodist missionaries, here to convert the wicked to a better way, and they did have a good conversion rate amongst the convicts. The Schofields were known to be kind, ready to help out with a bit of food, maybe even a blanket. We're glad they were here. Subject of food. What's for dinner? Well, Major Champ, as always, gets to order off the menu. What'll it be tonight, Major? Roast swan? Baked wombat? Your favourite? Stuffed echidna? Echidna stuffed with sage and onion? Beautiful. As for your lot, well, oh, what is that? Could be salted beef. Maybe it's pork. I can't tell, there's not very much of it anyway. If we're really lucky, we might get a potato from the vegetable gardens. At least we know the bread's okay. It's baked here, it's injected with vitamin B thanks to the weevils. But these men were starving. Hard physical labour from dawn until dusk, and no fish hooks allowed. No fishing. Soon the convicts started trapping wallaby for fresh meat. Then they could bribe the military with the wallaby skins, which would end up in the tannery and eventually in Hobart on someone's feet.
I told you, there's a shack in there.
A shack, yeah, I can see the people coming down to the boats.
Yeah, it's a,
Fishermen.
no, loggers.
Loggers
It's
shack.
been looked after by the locals.
Oh, okay.